Now, we're one. Now, you're gonna pay. From now on, we're poison to you, Spider-Man.
Venom is one of Marvel's most beloved anti-heroes. He's come a long way from wanting to murder Spider-Man, hasn't he? But let's not forget, during his most villainous days, Venom did a lot of up stuff. That's not hyperbole either. We've got a whole list of terrifying facts about Venom, his actions, and some unfortunate truths that we're counting down today with our list of the top 10 scary Venom facts. Now, if you guys are fans of our channel, it's likely that you've heard about some of these moments before, so brace yourself for some familiarity. But for the most part, it's all generally scary facts about Venom and the things that he's done in the past. So get ready, friends, for a bit of a wild and pretty gruesome ride. Starting us off in at number 10, small ambitions. Did you know that Venom was never initially supposed to be an alien symbiote from Clintar? That was never in the cards for the black symbiotic suit that first appeared when Spider-Man donned it after the Secret Wars event in 1984's The Amazing Spider-Man issue 252. How did that all unravel, you might be wondering? Well, 2 years prior, back in 1982, a Marvel reader from Illinois named Randy Schuler wrote into Jim Shooter, who was the editor-in-chief at the time, with an idea of an all-new black costume for Spider-Man. Shooter was intrigued, so Marvel bought the idea from Schuler for $220. Kind of a steal. Then, Shooter came up with the idea to switch to the black and white costume, partially influenced by the costume design that Spider-Woman had at the time, which was quite popular. After his suit was destroyed during Secret Wars, Parker was directed to a place on Battleworld by Thor and Hulk that contained a machine that would instantly fabricate any type of clothing. Parker checked it out, but chose the wrong alien machine, which covered him with a new black and white costume that can mimic street clothes. Turns out it's just an alien costume that's trying to use him as a host. Fun. It wasn't until the costume received backlash from fans that it was withdrawn and taken off of Spider-Man, and then repurposed as a new villain, bonding with Eddie Brock to become Venom. Moving on to number 9, he's ditched a host. Venom knows what he likes. And if you're not it, he's not opposed to tossing you to the curb, quite literally in this case. In Marvel Knight's Spider-Man issue 7, we were introduced to a fellow named Angelo Fortunato, who Venom would bond with when Eddie Brock auctioned the symbiote off. Brock sold it to Don Fortunato, who wanted his son to become a man. So naturally, the most rational way of doing that is by buying a deadly alien symbiote who has a flair for violence and an appetite for brains. More on that later. Good one, Don. Angelo and Venom bonded for a while until Venom got bored of him and ditched him in possibly one of the worst ways ever. He bailed on a battle with Spider-Man when it became obvious that he was losing. And then, while jumping over a bunch of rooftops, Venom detached himself from Angelo, letting Angelo fall to his death below, all because Venom thought that he was too much of a coward. I mean, he wasn't wrong, was he? But you don't have to murder a guy, do you, Venom? You can just be like, hey, let's just part ways. This isn't working for me. Moving on to number 8, 2 hosts at once. Did you know that Venom can bond with 2 hosts at once? It's not perfect, let's just say that, or pretty, but it's a thing he can do. For starters, it's as chaotic as it sounds, and really it weakens the crap out of not only Venom, since he's split between the two, but also the hosts he's trying to bond with. This was the case during a battle between Peter Parker and Eddie Brock, during their initial conflict after Venom had bonded with Brock, both physically and emotionally, and set out to kill Spider-Man. Peter sees that he's outmatched at the time and tries to trick the symbiote by begging it to come back to him. That turned into Venom trying to be bonded to both men at once, and also a nice little shot of both ripped men struggling in their undies. Men in comic books can be objectified too, friends. Eventually, Peter is strong enough to win the conflict, with Venom and Brock still both despising the web slinger. Up next, number 7, his first murder was in a church. In his very early days bonded with Eddie Brock, Venom starts off with a splash by killing a cop inside of a church. So, this went down in Amazing Spider-Man issue 300, which is Venom's first on-panel murder. Aw, baby's first murder. His plan initially was to lure Spider-Man to a church called Our Lady of Saints, but that backfired when Spidey used the sound of the church bell there to defeat him. Venom doesn't really do too well with loud, intense sounds. Venom wanted to have a little bit of poetic justice and lure Spidey back there again and trap him in that very same bell. But that also did not pan out for the Clintar, because when he was using the church as an impromptu HQ, a cop stumbled in and came upon Venom. The cop was investigating a criminal who had been stealing from church donation boxes, so instead of risking being exposed, Venom just killed him. In at number 6, Carnage is his kid. Venom would give birth to the Carnage symbiote in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 361. Context time. Clintars are not a very parental race of aliens. They generally give birth like they're laying eggs, but as soon as that offspring pops out of their body, they're gonzo. They don't raise it. And a big reason why is because offspring are always more innately powerful and stronger than their parents. Often the symbiote offspring is discarded and becomes a non-issue, which is what Venom deemed this particular situation to be. But while he was breaking Eddie Brock out of prison, he gave birth to Carnage, and Carnage then bonded with the psychotic serial killer that Brock had as a cellmate, Cletus Cassidy. It all went downhill from there, people. Moving on to number 5, brains, brains, brains. Venom eats brains. This is because brains contain something called phenethylamine, a substance that is also found in chocolate. Another fun fact about Venom is that he loves chocolate for this sole reason, although it's not a scary fact, so it didn't really get its own number. Anyway, because of this, Venom craves phenethylamine, which is a neurotransmitter found within the human brain. Now, in 1996, we first witnessed him eat his victims' brains on panel, with Eddie Brock being horrified by it. This went down in Venom the Hunger issue 1. Brock was so traumatized by his actions via Venom that he had to temporarily separate from the symbiote, making Venom promise that it would never eat another brain while Brock was his host and stick to his chocolate diet instead. Although once Brock was no longer the host, that changed, but more on that in a sec. Moving on to number 4, Venom feeds off cancer. If the brain thing wasn't bad enough, Venom's diet also consists of large quantities of cancer. Yes, Venom feeds off of cancerous cells, so to speak. Or at least he did briefly. In 2005, it was revealed that one of the reasons why Venom was so keen on bonding with Eddie Brock wasn't because of their mutual dislike of Spider-Man, although apparently that still played a big part. The reason is that Brock was suffering from cancer this entire time, and the symbiote was feeding off of the adrenaline that the cancer was producing in Brock's body. In turn, he was keeping Brock alive. Since then, there's been a lot of little retcons concerning their relationship, since many fans felt that that was a stupid reason to have them connect in the first place. In at number 3, A History of Sexual Assault. Okay, so this one is really bad. In Venom Volume 1, Issue 12, a corporation known as the Ararat Corporation tries to use the Venom symbiote for their own agenda. Having recently parted ways with Eddie Brock, the symbiote did not have a host at the time, so the corporation attempted to make that happen. That did not go so well, since Venom killed most of the potential hosts that they threw at him. To make matters worse, they sent in 2 potential hosts for him at once, a mental patient and a serial killer. What does Venom do? Well, he decides to screw with them. He jumps between the men to learn more about them, and discovers that the serial killer murdered 4 men who had sexually assaulted him in prison. So Venom decides to bond to the mental patient and attack the serial killer, stating, I quote, "It's going to happen again." Yeah, that's f***ed. Then the assault happens off panel, with the serial killer being revealed to be deceased afterwards. This isn't the only time that the symbiote has pulled some whack stuff as far as sexual assault goes. There was a point during Venom the Madness, a 3-part miniseries that ran between 1993 and 1994, where Venom tried to assault Brock's girlfriend at the time, Beck. The idea behind this story is that there is no true symbiosis between Host and Clintar, and when conflict arose between the 2 identities, that results in a 3rd entity called Insanity. It was the Insanity who decided to assault people, apparently. Luckily, the assault never actually happens, because Juggernaut storms in and fights Venom, which might be one of the only times readers were excited to see Juggernaut save the day. In at number 2, Venom is a cannibal. One of Venom's more violent periods is when the symbiote had Mac Gargan as his host. Gargan, aka the Scorpion of Spider-Man fame, had a more nefarious temperament than other hosts the likes of Eddie Brock or Flash Thompson, so Venom fully indulged in some behavior the symbiote hadn't tapped into since his early days on panel, and worse. This iteration of Venom was straight up into eating people. Gargan's time with Venom is perhaps one of Venom's most gruesome. Not only would he eat brains, but he also ate body parts. He once ate an entire scroll. Brock was able to keep those urges at bay, but when it was Gargan's turn, the symbiote was insatiable, eating the bodies of his victims. That's cannibalism, friends. And finally, in at number 1, Venom has committed genocide. Planetary genocide. It's something that quite a few planetary genocide. It's something that quite a few characters in Marvel's roster have on their resume, including Venom. In Venom Space Knight issue 8, Venom decides to get something off his chest. He admits to his then host Flash Thompson that he was responsible for killing everyone on the homeworld of one of his first hosts. As the story goes, Venom had been badly wounded after separating from his very first host, and in the aftermath he bonded with another alien, whose name he never mentions. This alien was different though. It contained a bottomless rage inside of it that took advantage of Venom, using Venom's powers to kill everyone on its homeworld. As Venom puts it, I quote, "My first host came back to his homeworld and murdered it. We murdered it. He was a cruel and twisted soul who showed me the cruelty and twistedness of my own soul." Venom attributes this event to why he was so full of hate himself initially. Alright, there we have it, friends. There are still plenty of disturbing Venom facts that we didn't get to touch on during this list, so if you guys want to see a part 2, give us a shout in those comments below. If you dug this video, hit that thumbs up button, share it with a friend, and be sure to spread that love by subscribing to Top 10 Nerd if you haven't already. We'd love it if you stuck around with us some more. In the meantime, thanks for watching, friends. I'll catch you all in the next video.